Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Kettering Planning Commission for June 17th, 2024. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Miami Valley Cable Council for televising and taping tonight's meeting for rebroadcast on Channel 6 and streaming live over the internet at mvcc.net. It will also be recorded and available for later viewing on mvcc.net. Since this meeting is both audio and videotaped to form a complete record for possible appeal to City Council and/or the courts, it is important that anyone who wishes to address the Commission will need to come to the lectern to speak into the microphone and give their name and address for the record. The Planning Commission is a volunteer, independent body appointed by Council, whose mission is to hear all bodies involved and subsequently make a motion to approve, deny, continue, or recommend the application. All action by the Commission can be appealed to the City Council. At this time, I'd like to introduce members of the Planning Commission. On my left is Carol Fisher, the Secretary. I'm Don Rethman, the Chair. On my right is Ray Waske, the Commissioner, and on his right is Troy Urbis, the Vice Chair. Ken Lackey, the Assistant Secretary, and Connie Gall, the Recording Secretary, have excused absences this evening. Member of staff present here this evening, Ryan Homsey, City Planner. First item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from June 3rd, 2024. Do we have any comments on the minutes as presented here this evening?
I have none.
No.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have read the minutes over, found them to be in order, and I move for their approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Waske?
Yes?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Urbis?
Abstain.
And Mr. Rethman?
Yes. All right, the next item on the agenda here is new business. It is conditional use at 1700 Spalding Road. It is PC-24-010, and this is a public hearing. Mr. Homsey.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll go through a quick presentation of the requested conditional use, and then I will take any questions if there may be any. We have a couple people in attendance tonight on behalf of the applicants here and a couple other people to support the applicant. So any questions that I can't answer can hopefully be answered by them. So the property in question, it's 1700 Spalding Road. It's the Quaker Hoyton, I believe is how it's pronounced, chemical company. It's located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Plainfield and Spalding, kind of outlined in red there. The initial front brick part of the building, I believe, was built in the 1950s, and then since then there's been two major additions onto the east side. You can kind of see the outlines of the roof of where the additions were built. There was an addition approved by the Planning Commission in 2005, further on the east that was never built. But tonight they're coming back for a new addition. The property in question, it's fairly heavily vegetated. There were a number of trees planted, I believe, when the last addition was built. I couldn't exactly get a year when that was done, but this picture is taken kind of near the corner of Spalding and Plainfield, looking east toward the front of the building here. You can see their sign right there, and this is Spalding Road on the right-hand side and the driveway that leads into their site. Whoops. And the stars that are on the pictures are roughly depict where the addition is proposed to be. This is the south wall of the main building here. This is taken looking east from Spalding. You can kind of see a canopy right here that covers some equipment. The addition will be behind that area. And then there's an existing outdoor storage area where the addition is proposed to be that will be moved further west toward Spalding Road, and it'll sit about right here, kind of next to that second addition on the building. Here's a picture at the bottom of this, looking north. At the bottom of the picture there is, I believe this is the Creekside Bike Trail. This is Spalding Road. The addition will be behind these, I believe they're linden trees here. You can kind of see the main building here. The brick portion is more visible further to the left there. Here's a picture from Plainfield, also looking east. You can see a number of those trees that were planted about 20 or 25 years ago. This is a little bit further east, looking south toward one of the loading areas. And going further toward the eastern end of the building, here's the main 2 loading docks here. The addition will be behind this part of the building. It'll be taller than the existing building, so you will be able to see it. You will be able to see it from here, and it'll stick up right there. Whoops. Sorry. This picture is looking southwest, kind of from the bend in Plainfield, looking toward those same loading docks. One thing that staff pointed out in our report is while most of the trees that were planted are healthy, a few of them have died or are on the verge of dying. Here's a couple of them here at this corner here. And this is a picture looking west toward the storage area that exists today. This is the east side of the building here. This is the outdoor storage area, which will be slid further to the west towards Spalding, and the addition will come off the building right there. The property in question is zoned Business Park, which is our industrial zoning district. It's been zoned that as far as we can tell ever since the property was developed. It's a part of that industrial park that Plainfield Road is mostly industrial, and this is a part of that Plainfield industrial park development. On the screen now is the actual site plan that we've gotten from the applicant. This is not what's being voted on tonight. It's more the use, but this is the general idea of what they're thinking. The red outline is where they're proposing to build the 7,500 square foot addition. And that storage area sits kind of where that red outline is today. That storage area will slide to the west. And that's that orange outline here. In order to make room for that storage area, they'll have to remove and install some more. They have some chain link security fencing there. That purple line depicts roughly where they're proposing to put that new fencing. And we also have a landscaping plan, mostly showing installing the 5 parking lot trees, then the required foundation shrubs, and then this is kind of a rough plan on how to screen that outdoor storage area from Spalding Road. I don't know why that keeps happening. This is a good start. We have a couple recommended changes that we'll get to a little bit later, but this is the landscaping plan that we have so far. The staff comments on the site plan are, for the most part, the plan complies with the setbacks. It complies with the minimum or the maximum height requirements. The use is permitted as a conditional use. They're here tonight to get the expansion of that conditional use approved. Where they're proposing to put the outdoor storage area is perfectly fine. We just need to make sure that it's screened in accordance with section 1147.10 of the Kettering zoning code. So really we're really down to the nitty-gritty details of the plan, kind of like we were with Oberwork over on Kettering Boulevard when they came to the Planning Commission. There's a single inverted U bike rack required. They have a concrete pad that can fit it in front of the main door. That pedestrian connection's required. They have enough driveway right there to just stripe it in the parking lot, so that won't take any additional asphalt or concrete. I don't know why there's a single light fixture kind of right there it's been installed. I couldn't tell exactly when, within the last couple of years. It just needs to be directed a little bit more downward because it throws glare into the street. There's a couple other light fixtures near the loading docks, if those can be shielded or directed more downward to not shine light toward those houses. Those are the main comments we have on the site plan. On the landscaping plan, and this is pretty critical out of everything about this project, there's probably nothing more important than making sure that outdoor storage area is screened from Spalding Road. And also where there are some dead or dying vegetation, they should replace it as a part of this project, because if major expansion is proposed and if this new use goes in and the operation expands a lot, they'll need to buffer that loading dock area a little bit better from those houses to the north, and they may as well work on starting that now. But if you visited the site, and I'll get to some pictures in a second, this is a well-maintained property. A few of those trees have died, but they are, for the most part, fairly healthy. It's well mowed. As a part of the research for the project, I went back to 1983. That's how far our electronic records go back for property maintenance violations, and I found a couple about the fence, a few complaints in 2005, which I think were about the same instance of a truck leaving the site in the middle of the night and shining headlights and some noise toward those houses to the north. That was immediately rectified. If trucks leave the site, they leave onto Spalding Road now instead of Plainfield. And ever since 2005, I couldn't find any operational complaints about this operation. So, no noise complaints, no traffic complaints, no nothing, which is good. Before I get to the recommendation, attachment E in the staff report, because we don't know exactly how they want to replace that section of fence that they need to replace, or they probably want to replace to secure their property. Our code today doesn't allow barbed wire on fences. There's some grandfathered barbed wire around the city, but if you go to this site today, some of the newer sections of fence don't have it. And my guess is that's because when it was replaced, they weren't permitted to put the barbed wire back. But the Planning Commission does have the ability to approve slightly taller fences than what the code allows through your review process, subject to certain conditions. And one of the recommendations in the motion is to allow the new fence to be up to 7 feet tall, provided it's more of a decorative type fence, kind of like in the bottom left of the screen here, within along this red dashed line here. And again, they don't have to do that. It just gives them a little bit more flexibility if they want a taller fence that has a little bit more security than what the zoning code allows. They don't have to do it though. They could just put a vinyl coated chain link fence back with no barbed wire, 6 feet tall, and they'd be fine. The elevations that we have, again, just like the site plan, the elevations are not being voted on tonight, but this is the addition is going to be 34 feet tall to the main height, 36 feet tall to the highest point of the parapet where the parapet adjusts. This meets 99% of our architectural requirements in the zoning code, but they are trying to decide whether they want to do cast in place concrete walls or tilt up concrete or spec brick. The document that went out with the report showed spec brick, but that could change to tilt up concrete or something else as long as it meets the code. So getting to the actual requirements of the zoning code that process plants are subject to and that conditional uses are subject to. The process plants are allowable conditional uses in this zoning district, subject to certain requirements. First, process plants have use-specific standards in section 1137.07.7 of the Kettering zoning code, and the proposal either meets the requirements, conditionally meets the requirements, or they're not applicable to this request. The first one is that all structures shall be located at least 100 feet away from any residential district or residential used property. And the subject building sits 170 feet from the nearest residential district or use. And the addition will not result in the structure being any closer to the nearest residential used property, so this requirement is satisfied. The second one, all storage of materials or equipment that is not totally enclosed within a building shall be at least 150 feet from any residential district or residential used property, and shall be screened as specified in section 1147.10 of the Kettering zoning code. The current and proposed locations for the outdoor storage areas are both further than 150 feet from the nearest residentially zoned property. And in terms of screening, the existing building and the proposed addition will screen the storage area from Plainfield Road to the north and west, while the natural vegetation to the south will provide a strong level of screening. Staff is recommending a condition that the landscaping and screening plan be updated to better screen the storage area from Spalding Road, so this requirement is conditionally satisfied. The third one, all outdoor production, fabrication, and/or manufacturing shall be at least 400 feet from adjacent residential used and/or zoned property. This is not applicable because they don't have any outdoor activities. And finally, letter D, a finished masonry wall that is 6 feet in height shall be provided along any property line of such an establishment adjoining a residential used property. And this is not applicable because the use does not directly adjoin any residentially used or zoned properties. And finally, vehicular access shall be onto such adjoining street as may be determined by the zoning administrator. The decision of the zoning administrator shall be based on the following: Number one, no additional or unreasonable traffic hazard shall be created. And number two, the access is not to create such increase in traffic volume through a residential neighborhood compared to the traffic resulting from such a use, but without that access. And the proposed, there are no proposed changes to the access points for the site, and there are no known issues with the current traffic circulation patterns to and from the site. There is one condition recommended relating to freight access to the site, to and from the site, so this requirement is conditionally satisfied. And again, we got one complaint about this back in 2005. It was immediately addressed, and there have been no issues since then that we're aware of. Finally, the general conditional use standards, which can be found in section 1153.08.8 of the Kettering zoning code. The first is that the proposed conditional use shall comply with all applicable regulations of the zoning code. The plans that we have right now, for the most part, do meet our requirements. We have a few conditions about ensuring that as the plans get more solidified, that they finalize the architecture and the screening and things like that. So this requirement is conditionally satisfied. Letter B, the proposed conditional use shall conform to the character of the neighborhood within the same zoning district in which it is located, and shall have no more adverse effects on the health, safety, or comfort of persons living or working in the neighborhood, or shall be no more injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood than would be any other use permitted by right within the same zoning district. The property is located within an existing industrial park, and the subject use has been operating on the property for decades with no known chronic issues. The few issues that have arisen over the years have been quickly rectified by the operators of the plant, and letters did go out. I didn't get any phone calls or emails from any of the adjoining property owners. The property is well maintained both inside and outside the building. Further, as a part of this project, the applicant will be required to bring nonconformities on the site into compliance, including screening standards, which will result in an overall improvement to the character of the area. Further, while the use is a processing plant, it is not a processing plant that results in excessive noise or the emissions of gas, fumes, or odors. Should such issues arise in the future, they will be addressed as violations of the Kettering zoning code. And as a part of this project, I did visit the property a number of times, different times of the day. And the one time I thought I heard a loud piece of machinery, someone was just mowing the grass. So it's a quiet operation. They gave me a tour of the plant one of the times I was there. We don't anticipate any of those current conditions will change as a part of this request. So this requirement is conditionally satisfied. Adequate utilities shall be provided. This is satisfied. Number 4, adequate measures shall be taken to provide ingress and egress so designated as to prevent traffic hazards and to prevent traffic congestion on public roads. This project is not expected to result in a substantial increase in traffic to or from the site relative to the existing operation. Further, there are no known issues with the current traffic circulations to and from the site, and if traffic does increase, there are 3 ingress and egress points, 2 onto Plainfield, 1 onto Spalding, onto roadways which can absorb additional traffic. Number 5, the proposed use shall not be noxious or offensive by reason of vibration, noise, odor, dust, smoke, or gas. As laid out in the report, the proposed use will not generate noxious or offensive vibration, odor, noise, dust, smoke, or gas. Again, should issues arise in the future, they'll have to be addressed by the operator as a violation of the Kettering zoning code. Number 6, the proposed use shall not injure the use and enjoyment of the property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair the property values within the neighborhood. Provided that the recommended conditions are met, the proposed use will have no such impacts when compared to other uses already permitted by right in the business park zoning district. So this requirement is conditionally satisfied. Number 7, the proposed use will not impede the orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted within the zoning district. The proposed use will have no such effect. If anything, provided that if it moves forward and meets the code, it will set a decent tone for future similar projects in the immediate vicinity. So this requirement is satisfied. Number 8, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the proposed use shall not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. Again, provided the conditions are met, the proposed use will not be detrimental to or endanger any of these items. This requirement is conditionally satisfied. And finally, number 9, the public interest and welfare supporting the proposed use shall be sufficient to outweigh the individual interests that are adversely affected by the establishment of the proposed use. And the proposed use will have no such adverse impact that must be outweighed. So this requirement is satisfied. Okay. That's my report. We do have a recommendation. Before I get to that, I know the few people are here who might be able to answer some questions, but if you have any questions for me, I would be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Hollis?
I have none.
I have none.
Mr. Urbis?
Yeah, just a couple questions. One on the vehicular traffic. Do we anticipate a percentage increase with this expansion going on from current levels right now?
I would leave that up to the applicant. I mean, percentage-wise, from what my understanding is, it'll be very minimal, and the traffic patterns aren't going to change, and the timing of that traffic isn't going to change either. So I would defer in terms of the percentage increase to the applicant, but we don't anticipate any.
Okay. Well, my next couple questions probably more toward the applicant then.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. If there's someone here from the applicant who would like to address the commission, it's your option if you'd like to. We just ask that you come to the lectern, give your name and address for the record. You've been nominated.
So I'm Matt Cranston from Quaker Houghton, 1700 Spalding, and I'm the engineering manager and engineer in charge of the project, so I have people from the site with me here as well if we had more specific questions. So I didn't have anything else to really add. We chose this among several other sites that we were looking at among the company, and it's kind of the best spot that we found to build, for various reasons. So we're looking forward to getting it underway. So really, if there's just any questions,
Looks like it's my turn. Everybody's looking at me. Thank you, Mr. Cranston. I'm curious if you can give me a little bit of description of your current operations and then what this addition will do to expand that, or is it something different you're doing there?
So the current operations, we blend, we're kind of a chemical blender. We blend silicone-based products for the die casting industry currently is their main business. So Quaker Houghton is all about metalworking fluids. So we make anything from steel rolling oils that go to AK Steel down in Middletown to, stamping and machining fluids that are used at an engine plant or transmissions, body stamping, things like that, automotive. So everything to do with metals. So this is a piece of business that they're looking to get into in forging, which forging is high temperature metal processing. And so this is a graphite based liquid that's suitable for very high temperature operations. It's a new piece of business that they see a lot of growth in by 2030. So they were looking for a home to manufacture products. So it's kind of a logical add-on, not an expansion of what we're doing currently, but similar and a add-on piece of business with a new product line.
Will that increase your vehicular traffic or materials coming in and out?
Vehicular traffic, I'm sure, is kind of an average up and down. There's, deliveries various days of the week. This would add some incoming raw materials and some outgoing finished products, but finished products would probably be consolidated onto existing shipments. Raw materials, maybe a truck a week. I think that's what we're looking at, is a couple of trucks per week in and out would be maximum. And I would say on a percentage basis, I'd have to defer to Jeff, but I wouldn't think more than a 5 to 10% type of increase in traffic.
Okay, sounds good. Think that answers most of what I got?
All right.
You answered this during my research, but when I was talking to you before, in terms of like new equipment that it's going to bring to the operation, is in terms of noise, in terms of dust, like it's really not, it's a new operation, but it's not going to intensify the actual equipment.
No, and everything will be indoors. We'll have some utilities outside similar to what we have now. There'll be another chiller to cool the process. There'll be a dust collector to take, collect any dust, HEPA filter type of dust collector outside. And all of that is kind of shielded in it'll become an L-shaped building, and everything will kind of be in the L-shaped corner.
It's back
You
here,
know, when it's said and done, in
Yeah.
the back,
right there.
yeah.
Is there any type of materials you'll be discharging out of that or waste and going out?
No, the site currently doesn't discharge any waste to the city, and that would remain the same. I mean, any waste that we would ever ship out of there would be minimal packaged waste that, you know, goes to a waste processor.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions for the applicant?
I have none.
No.
All right, thank you. If there's anyone else like to speak on behalf of the applicant, now's your opportunity, and if not, all right, if you're welcome to, and if not, then the sort of next part here would be audience participation. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against this case, now is your opportunity. All right, staff recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. The staff recommendation, and this is based upon a review of the proposed use, the existing conditions of the site, and the proposed improvements. Staff does believe that provided all the recommended conditions are met, that the proposed use complies with the general conditional use criteria and the use-specific standards for processing plants. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission motion to approve the conditional use permit, case number PC-24-010, with the following conditions. Number one, shipping and receiving operations and large freight vehicle traffic to and from the site be limited to between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Should this change in the future, a new conditional use hearing review shall be conducted by the Planning Commission following proper notice. Number two, the screening plan along Spalding Road be modified and submitted to the zoning administrator for review and approval in order to ensure the outdoor storage area is screened in accordance with the requirements of section 1147.10 of the Kettering zoning code. Number three, the applicant agrees to retain the existing healthy vegetation on the site and replace any dead or dying vegetation with comparable plant materials within 1 year of the approval of this conditional use. Number four, the applicant agrees to work with staff on finalizing the plans for the property in order to bring the site into compliance with the applicable standards of the Kettering zoning code. And number five, the applicant agrees to submit color selections for the finished materials to the zoning administrator for review and approval as a part of the building permit process. And then finally, what I referenced about the fence earlier in my presentation. Additionally, staff recommends that the Planning Commission utilize the authority granted in section 1147.08.3.c of the Kettering zoning code to permit the security fencing on the property to be up to 7 feet in height, provided the following condition is met, and that is that the fence be placed and designed in accordance with attachment F of the staff report, and that attachment was the slide earlier in the presentation with the line and the fence picture. That concludes the staff recommendation.
All right, any commission comments on the recommendation from staff?
No.
No, I have none.
Okay. With that then, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Waske,
Yes.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Urbis,
Yes.
and Mr. Rethman.
Yes. All right, at this time, I believe we have, Mr. Urbis, you have a motion for us?
I have a motion to approve. All right, conditional use approval for 1700 Spalding Road, whereas an application has been received from Matt Cranston of Quaker Houghton, agent for the owner of 1700 Spalding Road, requesting approval of a conditional use to allow for the expansion of the process plant Quaker Houghton on the property of 1700 Spalding Road, Kettering, Ohio, 45432, and whereas the property is zoned BP Business Park and process plants are allowable conditional uses in that zoning district and can be approved through a public hearing process with the Planning Commission, and whereas the Planning Commission has reviewed the facts surrounding this request, including an oral and written report by city staff, which is incorporated herein, and held a public hearing on June 17th, 2024, and whereas the request constitutes approval of a major amendment to the conditional use to allow for the expansion of the process plant on the property at 1700 Spalding Road, And whereas the Planning Commission adopts the findings of fact presented by the staff in their staff report, which is incorporated into this motion. I move that the applicant's request for approval of a conditional use to allow for the expansion of the processing plant on the property of 1700 Spalding Road be granted with the following conditions. 1, shipping and receiving operations in large freight vehicle to and from the site be limited between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Should this change in the future, a new conditional use hearing review shall be conducted by the Planning Commission following proper notice. 2, the screening along the Spalding Road be modified and submitted to the zoning administrator for review and approval in order to ensure the outdoor storage area is screened in accordance with the requirements of section 1147.10 of the Kettering zoning code. 3, the applicant agrees to retain the existing healthy vegetation on the site and replace any dead or dying vegetation with comparable plant materials within 1 year of the approval of this conditional use. 4, the applicant agrees to work with staff on finalizing the plans for their property in order to bring the site into compliance with the applicable standards of the Kettering zoning code. And 5, the applicant agrees to submit color selections for the finished materials to the zoning administrator for review and approval as part of the building permit process. Additionally, I move that per authority granted in section 1147.08.3.c of the Kettering zoning code, the security fencing on the property may be up to 7 feet in height, provided the following conditions are met. 1, the fence be placed and designed in accordance with attachment F of the staff report. End of motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the proposed motion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Urbis,
Yes.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Woski,
Yes.
and Mr. Rethman.
Yes. All right. Good luck on your project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll email you the signed copy of the motion.
That was a long
I
one.
needed a break.
Yeah, you recess today.
All right.
Good luck. Thank
Yep.
you, gentlemen.
All right. Next item on the agenda is audience participation for items not on the agenda. If there's anyone out in the audience who wishes to address the commission, now is your opportunity.
Here you go, here's your chance.
Seeing as that no one is wanting to come forward, we'll moving on to other business. Signing of plats,
We don't have any.
communications and reports.
We actually do not have any.
All right. Planning Commission comments. Ms. Fisher.
None.
Mr. Woski, Mr. Urbis. All right. I have no comments. So with that, we will adjourn this regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Kettering Planning Commission for Monday, June 17th, 2024 at 7:33 p.m. until our next regularly scheduled meeting.